So client agent, as I said, this is software that sits on a client this first slide sort of just motivates why we did it in the first place. I think, what we heard was, hey, we want to get a true client perspective, right? What we get today is sort of what we see of the client after it's hit the network. So we see sort of the infrastructure perspective on the client. And we see, the client perspective, but after it's got there. But, what if a client can't even get onto the network in the first place, right? What about that use case? Or, what if the client is roaming in this weird way that you wouldn't expect from the infrastructure? And, how do you figure that out? Yeah.
So how detrimental is the client agent to the actual client? Because let's just say there's some other people who've done some client agents that haven't been as pretty or as clean, and they like to really just run every resource they can.
I'll talk about that in a second. Okay. It's very lightweight, so we kind of made sure of that on the requirement. But yeah, there's another use case of like remote users versus enterprise users and things like that. Users that connect over a VPN and sort of having a perspective there. So those are some of the motivating factors. And so, what we said is, okay, we can build a software client agent. Right, it's a relatively simple, piece of software, and I'll talk about sort of the effect on the client itself. What do you call it? It'll run on the client device. The two things we want to collect from the client really are additional wireless metrics, actually, and additional system metrics. So driver information, information about, let's say, layer 2 rates and noise and stuff like that, but from the client point of view. Right, as well as synthetic data. So running tests, so pinging particular hosts or the default gateway and things like that, and getting that perspective from the client. But the key thing for us is, as I'll show you guys in the demo, it's integrating it with the rest of Voyance, right? So it's not just getting client data and just showing it. It's really having it in the same place alongside data from the infrastructure. So I'll show you an example of this, of like, what the Cisco or the Aruba wireless controller thinks is the signal-to-noise ratio of a client versus what the client says is the signal-to-noise ratio of it can be quite different, right? And can lead to... Exactly. That was Keith's shocked face, by the way, for those that can't see. But having that in the same place will, yield a lot of insight into, okay, all right, this is what's happening in this environment. So this is just some details. So, okay, I don't think I have it on this slide, but we support Mac OS X, Android, and Windows today. Those 3 operating systems. We would like to support iOS, but iOS is very locked down.
Get out of town.
I'm just saying shocking things today.
I know the percentage of users is pretty low on Linux, typically corporate-wide, but any plans for Linux coming down the road?
Yeah, we've heard some requests for Linux. So yeah, and that's something, at least it's open.
You'll say it's the complete opposite. You can be right on top of that.
You can do whatever you want in there, exactly. But yeah, so those 3 operating systems. Some of the attributes that we collect and that show up in the product, like the driver, with the CPU and memory on the client. The battery status is an interesting one to look at, and how that affects, performance. The scan data, when the client scans for the SSIDs or whatever, just to have that data. Again, just to sort of be able to reconstruct a roam. I think that's probably the biggest, use case on that one. And then finally, synthetic tests. So whether that's HTTP, ping, we're sort of looking at adding more synthetic tests and stuff like that the client can run that will capture data on. In terms of the effect on the client, as I said, it's very low. It's less than 1% CPU. It's interesting. We've gotten requests on the client agent to parallelize a lot of synthetic tests. And something like that, if not done properly or with some care, can take quite a bit of resource. So we're looking into sort of ways to sort of optimize that and kind of limit it to make sure that it doesn't take up those resources. The other side of it is, certain enterprise customers want to deploy this enterprise-wide, and so they sort of have this notion of, hey, I want to script this thing, so auto deploy this thing. It should get auto upgraded. It should play in the background, right? If I wanted to, so customers don't have to see it, or like employees don't have to see it on their toolbar and stuff like that, and you can do all of that.
Is there a way to auto-enroll? Or, because you said you can script it, but is
Yep.
there a way to like have like a DIY portal?
Yeah. I mean, you can download it from the product itself,
Is
so
there
you
a
can do
way
it
to
manually.
use like group policy to push this to clients? Because
Yeah.
okay.
That's how the
you
enterprise
work
uses it.
cleanly with that.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So any kind of like device management.
I don't know if I missed it, but is there a limitation into how many agents you can deploy and having that data being shown in the dashboard?
No, it's unlimited, except
Remember, this is the guy who overwhelmed you once.
Yeah, what are we
Really
talking
wanna
about?
keep the client app, because I don't know that that's a good thing for you.
Roel's been with us for a while. Yeah, that was early on, I remember. I think, yeah, you broke the record in terms of span data that you sent us, I think. It was like 17 gigs or something.
Attaboy.
Are you sure you want me to do this?
He sent you 70 days?
What's that? No, I said 17 gigs to a single crawler.
Wow.
So he's good like that. So, yeah, so, the only thing is, so less than 10 agents, or up to 10 agents are free. So if you have the product, you can do whatever you want with 10 agents, and then after that, there's sort of a charge for it. And yeah, just stuff that, we're obviously looking to improve and sort of like enhance client agents, just like we've done for the overall platform. But, just something I wanted to bring up, just because, I think it's an additional perspective, right? Especially with the industry having sensors and things like that, right? This is a way to get that perspective, again, with all software. Right, and with real client devices. So, all right. So with that, any questions or thoughts on this stuff?
I'm just interested to hear how this seems like a whole lot all at once, and this was my interpretation of it last year too. It's awesome, man. I see a lot of good things in here. Obviously, it's a great thing. I mean, Roel uses it.
Yeah.
When you go to a customer site, because obviously when you're trying to sell the product, so a lot of these customers have no clue, and this just seems like a whole lot of lights and everything else.
Yeah.
How do you shape that to them? Because I mean, this is all really good information, but it could be super overwhelming, and it was very overwhelming to me.
No, for sure, that's a problem that John deals with. You want to talk to that, John?
Yeah, the challenge in this is, a lot of this data is new for our customers. They see so much of this, right? And depending on the solution they have, today it takes 4 or 5 different, sort of screens to see it. For most customers, though, as sort of Anand talked about, it's really simple. We don't overwhelm them. We don't ask them to set up 20 feeds today. We start with the basics, and just the basics of the span data and wireless control data gives them a tremendous amount of insight, right? So we immediately generate those alerts, and then what we do is we add in sort of the richness of additional data and client data and client agent data and things like that, and take them in. And that just adds more character, right? It adds more confidence. We'll generate the alert on what we see from, say, a span data. And then if we add in more data on top of that from syslog and things like that, now that adds a little bit more richness into it. So we'll show it in the beginning, and if we add more data, it gets more sensible. So it's a lot, but as we incrementally build these things onto it, we're trying not to burden the customer. We don't change the interface and add a whole bunch of things to them. It just adds to the richness.
Sure.
So when you, and that's one of the challenges I have, is when you roll into a customer that's got 5 dashboards and you present them a unified dashboard, they now have 6 dashboards, right? You haven't fixed the problem. Do you have any very specific success stories about a customer who said, man, I was really able to turn this into a triage tool for whatever?
Yeah, I mean, that's where some of the tool replacement and consolidation. I think the one we see most often is the NMS, right? Hey, I was using this NMS for X and Y, and you know what? The Voyance platform can do that and way more, and so I don't really need that anymore. And so rather than going from 5 to 6, it's staying at 5 or whatever it is, but now having a lot more richness. And for us, it's like, hey, if you had your Radius server's dashboard open as an example, right? maybe with the correlation, once you send us the syslog data, for 80% of your problems, you don't need that radius dashboard open anymore, right? And the same thing would be true for the DNS DHCP. And so that's how we're planning on sort of evolving this. Because yeah, absolutely. I mean, any customer, it's like their screen will be full of 9 tabs or whatever it is. And the idea is to get more and more of that data into one spot, so it can be analyzed. And so yeah, in order to consolidate that. So that's the idea.
So I've looked at the product a little bit, and actually one of your SEs, Jeff Hadell, is a good friend of mine.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. No, I'm just kidding.
Is there? He's a good guy, so you can't hold. With regards to the dashboard, with the amount of information that it is possible to present to the end user, is it also possible to have multiple roles, if you will, of users to be able to have, say, a full administrative view where you see everything, and then maybe a help desk view for your NOC or somewhere? That's a more simplified view that doesn't go into so much detail, right? That allows that ticketing and troubleshooting process to begin for a user.
Yep. So yeah, today we have 2 roles. There's network engineer that can see everything, and then there's help desk that can only see the client details page. Now, we've gotten some feedback that even that is potentially too much.
Sure.
Especially for, and again, this is where you get into a little bit of, hey, my help desk team is better than your help desk team, and so they can handle more or less or whatever it is.
Is the product MSP friendly?
What's that?
Is the product MSP friendly?
It's MSP friendly. Mainly our customers are end customers. We have a few MSPs that we're working with. Comcast is one, for example, right? But I think, we'll develop more features. I think one of the big requests from MSPs was APIs, right, for integration and integrating into their systems, and that's something we do support today.
Okay.
And so, but there's other MSP-like features for sure. That.
And the only other thing I had was with regards to the theme, if you will, of the site.
Yeah.
I get marketing, I get branding, but that is really hard to read sometimes when you're looking at a dark background with tiny white writing.
Want to go, John?
Yeah, so
John's been excited about this one for a while.
So actually today, we're really excited to announce that we now have your ability to sort of choose your destiny, and a lot of our customers are able to come over from the dark side and finally see our light theme. So today,
all right.
There you go.
I found the golden nugget. I found the golden nugget.
Excited about that one.
Wednesday.
so especially
I
for
asked about that on the first time I saw it.
Up over there.
Stole the guys being on the dark side ain't bad. It's pretty cool.
So later today we'll be releasing the light theme, and it will be every projector's friend out there. So every time I have to go into a session like this and try to show the dashboard, I ask, can we please turn all the lights off and close the windows so that I can actually show this thing? So it's coming today.
Cool.
Good.
Sorry.
Are you guys going to talk about your on-prem solution at all today?
Not. It wasn't specifically on a slide or anything. No. But I can. Any specific question about
feature parity, because cost is a big thing for us, and again, your cloud, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
But at certain scales, it's uneconomical.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So, and it's good to see you guys put an on-prem solution in there. But is it feature paritied with the cloud?
Yeah, completely feature paritied. So the private cloud solution gets its updates from the public cloud. Today, there's a little bit of a lag. When we deploy to public cloud, it doesn't immediately get pushed on to private cloud. It's like a few days or whatever. We're making it so that it's instantaneous. So no, we want to say 100% feature parity. But yeah.
One last comment back on the previous slide.
Yeah, sure.
From the client standpoint, the end user standpoint, you have enough data here, you could actually make tech support have way less work by having the end user see a little thing that comes up and says, it's not the Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
So when they call tech support, they already know, my client's telling me it's DHCP.
Yeah.
And so when they make that call to tech support, they can already escalate past, well, are you sure you're standing in the right place? What's your RSSI?
Yep.
That's fantastic.
Something my mother could use, even at home going, oh.
I almost see that being negative.
It's not that.
Yeah.
I mean, very cool. I agree with that. But I mean, sometimes that type of information, people are going to be like, I have no idea what the heck this thing is saying to me, other than it's not the Wi-Fi. I mean,
Or they're going to call you and be like, well, it says it's this. You need to reboot the router.
but I agree.
But like in edu, I mean, maybe at K-12, but university students, they can
Agree.
Yeah.
I mean,
Self-serve.
Or
actually, most K-12 kids right now would be able to get that.
Let's take it one step further. Let's take it one step further. Instead of saying it's a DHC problem, say, here, post this to your tech support ticket, and then just send it off as, I have a DHC. They don't even need to read it. They just copy, paste, send it off as a ticket.
Man, as a person who gets into the ticket queue, though, I don't know that I'd like to see that all the time.
I would take it over than my Wi-Fi don't work fix.
That is very valid. That is true. Yeah.
So, obviously the product is positioned for, long-term deployment, overall trending in health and stats over a significant period of time.
Yeah.
Are you exploring markets or opportunities where there are triage-related opportunities where you get in, fix, get out?
Yeah.
Where you productize it in sort of a more lightweight fashion, meant to be a tactical tool as opposed to a long-term tool?
So we've explored it for sure. I would say the 10 agents are free point actually. A little bit is, in EDU today, right? So actually, there's a deeper answer to Keith's question. But in the EDU market today, most devices aren't managed. So it's not like you can deploy, enterprise-wide or whatever it is, right? Agents. So these tend to become more, tactical, right? Hey, you're having a problem. Hey, download this agent. Now we have some extra information from your client, and so on. The point to Keith's question though earlier, right, is the initial version of this, there's actually no UI on the client, right, today. So we kind of built it just to be running in the background and kind of integrated into the platform. It's a really good point that you make, which is that, maybe the right use case for this, or like a really good use case for this going down the line, is actually build a UI into it, then they can kind of see data or whatever it is, and then, kind of self-serve themselves or have additional information to put in the ticket, and so on. But the initial version of this, we just happened to build this way just to, sort of incorporate it most naturally into the platform.
So does
everything else that we do.
For like a troubleshooting purpose with the on-client agent, how does that work when they're off campus or off corporate campus, something like that, working from home, right? How does that not?
So you have to explicitly set which SSIDs are okay to collect data from.
Okay.
Right?
You as the administrator, or
you as the
end-
administrator.
Okay.
Yeah, as the administrator. So, there is a wild card. You could do that, but then it will collect data wherever the client goes, and there are privacy issues with that.
Sure.
So our default is you have to whitelist explicitly. All right, when he's on university or whatever, and collect data from that, but otherwise.
So I'll take that one step further then, and how do you combat the user? Because I've seen this done by a lot of professionals and executives. They stand up their own network in-house and use the same, as long as it's not WPA2 ENT with certificate-based stuff, they set up the same PSK SSID or something. How does it do IP address range, right? Because that could honestly provide some very skewed data to the overall picture of the network.
Yeah, today we haven't dealt with that particular use case yet. So the SSID-based whitelist has been enough. I'm sure we'll run into all sorts of corner cases or whatever, right, where we'll probably have to deal with that. But as of today, we haven't had to deal with that. Yeah.
So from Twitter, Trent Cutler says that he thinks we would benefit from seeing some Radius DHCP server comparison features. You guys?
Yeah, I'll definitely show that in the demo for sure. Yep.
I don't know if I heard the answer to your question, which was more of coming from a MSP or like a VAR.
Triage tool.
Yeah, where you just come in for a short period of time and use this as a troubleshooting tool.
Yeah.
But you just kind of dived into the client agent.
Oh, sure. Yeah, no. So I was just saying, in the client agent perspective, the less than 10 sometimes happen to be those kind of use cases, like tactical, hey, one client has a problem.
But you do see.
But we're still deployed, right? So it's not like that triage kind of use case for the overall platform. Now, in certain cases, the triage use case for the overall platform, where we've seen it the most is actually for what do you call it? Like when a vendor, like GE as an example, wants to come in and deploy all their stuff in a healthcare environment. They want to see whether the environment is ready, like kind of an assessment, if you will, right? So that's where there's like a synergy there of okay, you can assess based on what clients are actually experiencing from wireless and all this kind of stuff. And we can actually match up with other people that have stuff working well for the same vendor and say whether this environment is ready or not. And then after that, obviously for our purpose, it's ideal if a customer sort of keeps the solution, long term, because that's where a lot of the value is. But maybe some customers might not. And so we're looking at assessment type, use cases where it's a little bit more of, hey, let's put this in for a little while and then get out. But for us, the ideal is longer term because, baselining, cloud sourcing, all that kind of stuff, really you see the power of it over a long period of time versus.
And obviously, yeah. I mean, is there a way to trim that down? And I'm sure there is, but narrow it down into certain windows and stuff like that. You can adjust retention time, stuff like that, or.
Yeah, so that's a very common request too.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, especially people who deploy the private cloud solution are like, hey, why can't I keep data for longer? Or why can't I do this? And we're like, hey, great question. We just haven't built it yet.
Okay.
So, but yeah, definitely.
Do you foresee this ever moving into the wired space as well? So customers don't have, because this is very similar to wired solutions that you feed the same kind of data to. Do you foresee going into that?
Yeah, I mean, so wired clients on the campus side, yes. Wired data on the data center side, like the NetScouts and the extra hubs where they kind of play, probably not.
Okay.
So we sort of treat the data center as kind of a black box. We say, okay, the clients are accessing these applications, but beyond the application, we don't know about databases of the application and, services and all that kind of stuff inside the application. We kind of,
Are you planning to go that deep?
Probably not. No, we're not that way. What we'll do is if the application can tell us via API what is happening, that we'll do, right? So if Citrix can directly say, hey, the reason this VDI is slow is because the database connectivity went away or something like that, fantastic. We'll take that data, correlate it, and say, hey, it's not the Wi-Fi, it's, this is what's happening, right? But we're not going to go and analyze those transactions between the web servers and app servers and database servers.
Would you also put an agent on those wired machines as well? Same kind of concept, or?
What do you call it? Actually, so yeah, I mean, some requests have come up even for client devices of like, hey, can you guys run tests out of your wired interfaces?
Right.
So yeah.
So just talking about the wired section, 'cause that's really important, especially from a voice and video side, where you're actually integrating with clients that are wireless, doing a voice and video conversation, whether it's on WebEx Teams or Skype or something like that, going back to the wired side. And there's a lot of other clients that are wireless that will immediately plug into a dock on their desk. And guess what? It goes right to wired, and then they switch. And then all of a sudden they're getting some other performance hits or whatever it is. So that would be really good to kind of, to correlate the data between that wired endpoint and the wireless endpoint together. That helps out a lot, especially in the branches, small branches where you can't see what's happening. All of a sudden you're seeing kind of congestion on the network and everyone's blaming the Wi-Fi, but really it isn't. There's something actually,
in the LAN or with the firewall or something like that.
Something in that route table, something's capped out. So
No,
that would be interesting to see, because I think you would probably get some additional customers kind of thinking, hey, you know what? I want to put that in the branch. Can you just kind of put a collector of some sort, just so we can see what's going on?
Yeah, and actually for the branch use case, you don't even need a collector. You can put a collector in the data center, and don't send us span data because you're not obviously going to.
Well, you wouldn't want to send that over the WAN, right?
So you would never want to do
that
that
in a retail environment. You wouldn't want to have, you want to keep your WAN low.
So what we say there for those environments is send us NetFlow data, right? Send us syslog data, send us wireless metrics from your controller, and those can all go remote. And if you want to deploy some client agents, right? So now it's like a very lightweight branch deployment and insight into there.